She's passionate about telling stories of amazing women who are rocking the world and empowering women to live, love, and thrive. Here's your host, Katherine Gray.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us today on Live, Love, Thrive Women's Empowerment Hour, brought to you by 360karma.com. We have on a special guest today. She is the author of Live True, and also the founder of Transformation Institute. We're going to talk all about that. Please give a warm welcome to Ora Nadrich. Hi, how are you, Ora?
I'm so good. So great to be here with you.
Good. It was great to be at your book signing last night.
I know. I said we're having a twofer this week.
I know.
We see each other 2 days in a row.
I know. It's awesome. Yeah. And you actually have two books. The first one was...
First book is Says Who.
Says Who. I love that. Says Who.
One simple question, Says Who, can change your life forever.
Yeah.
And now Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, authenticity. I'm all about that, and I appreciate that you wrote a book about that, how to be more mindful, how to be more authentic. And we're going to definitely talk about that. But as everybody knows, I also like to know the road to your writing these books and what provoked you to do them. So many people, I think, listening always, have a book inside themselves. And we like to talk about, what motivates people to write a book and why they do it. And maybe just talking about that helps them to say, you know what, it's time to write my own book, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've actually encountered a few people who had that feeling.
Yeah.
Somebody even last night came up to me and she said she's been in a particular business for a number of years and she's looking to change.
I love
and her
that.
friend pointed to her and she said, write. She wants to write. And I said, when you want to write, you write.
Yes.
And you get out of your head.
Yes.
What I say in my book, the I can'ts, the I don't, I won't, those negative self-talk things that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
And I could just sense that she wanted to write a book.
Right.
So you got something to say. All you got to do is just start to put it down.
Yes. Just get started.
Get started,
right.
and get out of your own way.
So you were born in Tel Aviv. Yeah.
I was.
But you actually grew up in the U.S.
I did.
And you shared a story with me about your family moved here because your father was in the war and he
was
lost his best friend.
Yeah, my mother had just told me that story. I mean, it was a story that she has mentioned before, but she shared it again recently, so it was fresh in my mind about my father was in one of the wars in Israel at the time, and his best friend was next to him, and he got killed.
Oh, my God. Could you imagine?
No, I really can't.
Oh, my God.
It's unlike anything that you could ever even put your mind around, and he was very traumatized by it, and he came home, and my mom had 4 children, and he said, we're packing up, and we're going to America.
Wow.
Big wow.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay.
Yeah.
And he said, we're going to give it a try.
Yeah.
And we're going to go, and we're going to see what that's like. And she said, and I guess we're still trying because we're still here.
And your dad was a baker back in Israel, and then he came here and opened a famous bakery.
He did.
Yeah.
He had a very famous, successful patisserie bakery shop, and apparently he made like some of the most amazing, which I remember watching him do this when I would visit him. He made wedding cakes that were spectacular. They were like, they were like up to here.
And what was the name of the bakery? I bet a lot of people listening will know it.
The one in Israel, I can't remember the name.
But here?
Conditori something, but here it was Benish Bakery.
Benish Bakery.
And for anybody who knows Benish Bakery, it was very well known.
Yes.
And it was in the Miracle Mile area.
Okay.
And he then sold it years later, and it became... I don't know the exact sort of, how it came down the pike, but it was Benish, and then it eventually became Victor Benny's Bakery, but that was bought.
Oh, someone asked me if it was Victor Benny's Bakery.
Yeah, because I think another family and then another family, and that name, Benish Bakery.
Yeah.
Story goes that it was Victor Benny's Bakery.
Right.
So that was, he started it.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But you didn't want to go in that business.
No, as a matter of fact, till today I don't bake. I like to cook.
We just eat it, right?
I like to cook, but I don't bake, and I think the reason why I don't dive into baking is because he was such an artist. Do you know?
Yeah, who could mess with that?
He
Yeah.
really, like I said, these wedding cakes were works of art.
Yeah. Did any of your siblings take it up?
My brother, he had eventually opened up a food factory, and he was one of the first people that introduced sugar-free desserts on airlines.
Oh my gosh!
So
wow.
he went into that field, and my brother joined him with that when he opened up this big warehouse.
Wow.
Food warehouse.
So cut to your life. You decided to be an actress very young. Like you had a very successful career, like right out of high school.
I
right?
did.
Yeah.
I did. I was always very drawn to acting, and even as a little girl, I remember, creating imaginary plays. And
So how lucky for you they moved from Israel to LA.
that's right. And I
Yeah.
do believe that that's the way the universe works.
Yes.
In very, sometimes not such mysterious ways.
Right.
In that we look at, where we are today and look at the events that led up to that.
Right.
And it makes sense.
Yes.
So I was a young girl who very much was drawn to acting, and I had declared that I was going to be an actress, I think like at 10 years old. And it happened. And it happened faster than I had even prepared for.
So you were doing TV and commercials and
Yeah, I was doing episodic TV and commercials, and I started to act straight out of high school.
right. And what shows?
Oh my gosh.
Or what was your favorite?
To rattle off, this was the 80s, and,
Yeah.
there were so
Hey,
many...
I was around then. You can tell me.
You're right. I mean, I even did like something like, an Archie Bunker, for anybody out there who knows. I mean, there were so many... what was it called? The Endgame, Archie Bunker. There were so many shows that were on at the time, and then a lot of commercials.
Right.
Do you know?
Yeah.
And
Was it fun at the time?
it was fun at the time. I really loved it. I mean, the 80s were just a wild time,
Yes.
and I very much enjoyed doing it and loved it. But that was when I was having a bit of a hard time, which I talk about in Says
Yes,
Who.
yes.
So it really impacted my career,
Right.
actually.
So let's talk about that, because that's a big part of why you wrote the second book. A lot of people at home will probably identify with this. So, and there is a lot of talk right now, as a matter of fact, about mental illness in families, and that people need to talk more about it because it is so prevalent. And the more we talk about it, the more it becomes less scary for us to talk about, right?
Right, exactly.
So this
taboo, the stigmas around mental illness. I mean,
Right.
even having something like Mental Health Awareness Month, which May is that month, and that
Right.
there's so much more focus now on these subjects that at the time that I had the experience,
Right.
which was that my sister had a mental breakdown.
Right.
It wasn't talked
And you were
about.
only 15
I
and
was-
she was 19.
Yes,
Very
I
young.
wasn't quite 15, and it was extremely tragic and
Yes.
traumatic, and it just changed the course of my life.
Right.
And when I became an actress, the reason why I mention that is because when I became an actress, I started to have anxiety, and I didn't know why. And the reason why I had anxiety is because I had buried a thought that I had that came up for me. Because when we go into fear, we go into fight or flight, and oftentimes we tell ourselves things like, oh my God, I'm going to die, or something's going to happen.
It's something that isn't probably going to happen, but we're telling ourselves it is. And for you, let's explain that was that your sister was diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Manic depressive and just schizophrenia.
And then you were afraid the same would happen to you.
Yes.
I imagine that anybody that's listening that has some mental illness in their family, whether it's a sibling, a parent, a child, whatever, that people must go through what you went through thinking, oh my gosh, could that happen to me? So of course, it feels like that would be a natural fear.
I agree with
Yeah.
you, and I'm sure that a lot of people that have been through some kind of trauma in their life, for me, it was the personal story of my sister having mental illness, or whether it's alcoholism or
Right.
anything, or abuse, anything that we witnessed in the home and experienced that created trauma for us.
Right.
And then what happens is that when we're in trauma or fear, we tell ourselves things. And for me in particular was that, oh my God, what happened to her is going to happen to me.
Right.
And I'm
Now-
sure there are other people that have told themselves things.
Right. Now, she grew up in a drug culture, and it's possible, we had talked about,
Right.
that she had taken some sort of drug that pushed her into that state.
Yes.
And I say that because, like, really as a wake-up call to young people that maybe are trying out drugs, that this could have a very bad outcome. So,
absolutely, Catherine. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you're bringing it up, because as of just recently, there are studies that are showing now with, the legalization of marijuana. And for some kids, I know somebody whose child has chosen not to smoke marijuana because schizophrenia runs in the family. So there's now different theories around that.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I know that'll probably cause big uproar on here. I'm thinking something like LSD or
Well,
something.
it is, and I want to start
Yeah.
with that because
Yeah.
in as much as this isn't any judgment on any drugs that anybody chooses to use.
But everything affects everyone differently.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So these are new studies.
Yeah.
And that, that some of the marijuana that some of these young kids are using today are very strong, and they could be laced or mixed with other things,
Right.
as we know.
Yeah.
But yes, things like hallucinogenics and mind-altering drugs can be the thing that maybe for a psyche that's already maybe fragile, and that could have been the sense of my sister,
Right.
that maybe there was already, we don't know, that she could have been predisposed. There
Right.
could have been, she could have been overly sensitive.
Right.
There's just too many unknowns around mental illness, and
Right.
that's why it's really important for us to know more.
Right. How do you recognize if somebody's had a nervous breakdown? Like, what does that look like?
Somebody was just sharing this story with me as recent as yesterday about, somebody who was showing signs of instability. And, that's why expressing what you're going through is so important, and reaching out
Right.
and not feeling that you're alone, because you're not. And I talk about that in both books, that it's so important not to feel that you're alone in your despair. The suicide rate is extremely high right now, and also very much amongst young adults. And so this understanding that any signs that you might be experiencing, or that you notice in someone else, instability, talking about their depression, talking about their anxiety, talking about even that they don't want to be here. These are things we don't take lightly.
Right.
And these are things that we really need to put our focus and awareness on.
Well, do people stop socializing? Do they sleep a lot? Like, what
Yes,
what does it look like?
There are many signs that are real indicators for things like depression. Withdrawal, not communicating, not wanting to see somebody, where you start to be very aware of someone's behavior. And, that's why mindfulness is so important. It's like being aware of what we're experiencing and being aware of what we see in others.
Do you think that the reason you went into mindfulness, I was thinking this last night after I saw you speak at your book signing, is that the reason you focused on the mind was because of what happened to your sister's mind and your fear about your mind? Do you think that that's what made you think about the health of your mind and trying to create a life of helping people find mindfulness so that we're checked in with the health of our mind?
100% yes.
Yeah, I
without
think so
question.
too.
And that's where life and destiny and even the fate of others can impact our lives so greatly. I say that my sister Esther was my greatest teacher. She guided me on my path, unbeknownst to me, through tremendous pain and sorrow and suffering. Yes, I became very committed to wanting to know more about what makes us tick.
Yes.
And that for me specifically with her, the way I looked at her was, how can someone seem so fine one day and completely never the same again the next?
And that even happens with Alzheimer's and stuff too.
Yes.
Our mind is so important to keep healthy. And so I think the work you're doing is really important. And your books would lend itself to how do we keep a healthy mind?
Absolutely. What I call, creating new healthy habits of thinking.
Yeah.
And my books really touch upon that. My work is very much about thought awareness And Says Who is a book which I created a method for transforming negative and fear-based thoughts. And, I tell people sometimes about my first book, and I'll say, oh, it's a method that I created for transforming negative and fear-based thoughts. They'll go, oh my God, I need that.
Yeah.
Like, who doesn't need to transform those negative thoughts?
Yes.
We all have them. We all have the inner critic, and we don't realize how far those thoughts can really go and affect our lives negatively.
I love that it says who and live true. Did you mean to?
No.
I love the way it rhymes like that.
No,
says
and
who,
I'm
live
working
true.
on my
Get
third,
them both.
I'm working on my third book, and it's nothing like either of them.
It doesn't rhyme?
Yeah.
Darn it.
I know. It's completely different.
Oh, you are working on your third book?
I am.
Oh,
I am.
What is that about?
That's going into a whole another area that is deeper. And I'm taking, it is a continuation, if you will, about getting to know who we are.
Right.
Taking a deeper dive. I like to go into places that a lot of people don't want to go to.
Right.
I'm very much about the inner journey, and I'm very much about self-awareness and self-actualization. I think that how do you know yourself if you don't go in there and check in with what's happening inside, the inner journey. So the third one is, I think, taking even a deeper dive into who we are.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you put on workshops and different events, and you obviously do personal coaching and things like that.
I do.
So tell me a little bit about the events, and people can find out about that at your website, Ora Nadrich.com.
Yes,
okay.
And all of what I'm doing is on there, and whether it's future projects or everything, this will be on it that we're doing together.
And the books are on Amazon.
They're on Amazon,
okay.
or Barnes and Noble, but Amazon, we all know how fast that works.
Yes.
So and all the events that I'm doing, I do workshops. I've got 2 coming up. One is going to be at the Open Center in New York on October 12th, which I'm doing a workshop and a book signing on the authentic self. And I'll be doing a similar workshop in Seattle at the East West Bookstore August 11th.
Great.
Yeah,
so you're traveling all over the country with this message. I love that.
And I because I really want to get the message out wide and far. It really, you talked about earlier, Catherine, about we write because we have something to say. We write because something moves our heart and soul. And that's why I write the books that I write. So if I can reach more people to help them suffer less, then I feel like I've done my job.
So after your acting, you started a women's group and a writing group and doing the life coaching. It seems like it's all centered around helping women write and collaborate and similar to what I'm doing. It's women helping women.
Absolutely, and I love that, and I love what you're doing is amazing. Yes, I had a women's group for almost 10 years. Love women, love supporting women, love championing women. We rock. Do we not?
We do. Let's just say.
Yeah, just saying. And so the women's group that I put together, what's interesting is that I had my first women's group at 23 years old.
Wow.
And I had this idea to have a women's group. I just felt called to create
Before it was popular.
Before it was popular, before I had my second one. And I reached out to women that were powerful. And they were mostly older than me. And I said, I got something to learn from these women. They're powerhouses, and I want to know what they know. So I started this amazing group with very high-minded, I would say very spiritual-minded women. And I had this awesome group. There was a shaman in my group.
Oh my gosh.
There was a designer in my group. There was an author in my group. My gosh, they were such a powerful group of women. And I knew that something very special was happening in that situation. Fast forward to years later when I became a life coach, I said, I want to do that again. I want to bring women together so that we can hold space, sacred space together, and we can really bring our ideas into the foreground.
I just feel like we're more powerful when we help each other than when we try to stand alone.
I agree. I say we're more powerful as a we than a me.
And men have always been actually really good at having an old boys club. And I always say, no one wants to belong to the old girls club. So I call it the bold girls club.
I love it.
Like, let's be the bold girls club and really network and help each other and bring each other up the ranks.
If we can't do do it with each other, if we can't champion each other and empower each other and set the tone for that,
Right.
and it's really recognizing how powerful we are, and by doing that together, we are then that much more powerful, and that permeates out into the universe.
I do think people are starting to talk more about women helping women. But I do feel like it's still a lot of people talking about it, like saying, oh, I want to help women, oh, I like to help women. But, you know, every day we should be doing something to help another woman, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and put it into action.
Yeah, put it into action.
Yeah.
Let's walk the walk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's important, because you know what? I even talk about that with mindfulness. I don't like when things are just talked about.
Right.
We need to put them in motion.
Yes.
We need to act on those things. So
Yes.
I'm right there with you on it. I think the way in which we can really help each other, you know, I'm like you. I love to introduce people to people.
Yeah.
I love to network.
I always say it's free. It's
It
free to
is.
connect people. It's absolutely free and
Absolutely.
brings a lot of joy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that connectivity that we can do with one another brings everybody up.
Yes.
Do you know?
Yes, it
So
does.
why
There's no
wouldn't we?
downside to connecting people that benefit each other.
Absolutely.
Not one.
And you're right, but more of it is happening, and we're going to get it away from being talked about, and it's going to be actualized. It is being actualized.
Yes, it
it's
is.
happening. You're doing your thing, I'm doing mine.
Right.
And more wonderful women are doing it as well.
Absolutely. Oh, I've definitely seen more
Yeah.
women's groups popping up that are all about, you know, truly empowering women, not just meeting and having coffee and talking about
Right,
it, but actually
exactly.
doing it. Yeah.
And another thing is about that, which again is the ask. You know, what you've created with your organization is that women are coming forward and they're saying, hey, this is what I need.
Yes.
You know, you got to make your need known.
Yeah.
You
My
know?
friend Andrea Quinn always says that women are not great about asking
I know.
or receiving.
That's right.
And so it's something that we need to all work on.
Right.
And the ask is where it starts. If you don't ask, you're certainly not going to receive.
That's right. I remember talking to a woman.
I have to remind myself of that every day.
It is, because I remember a dear friend of mine was going through a bit of a crisis, and you know, she was keeping a pretty sort of cool, calm cucumber facade, and I said to her, well, you know, what's going on? You know, you're struggling. And she really expressed to me, she said, I have such a hard time asking.
Yeah.
I have a hard time. It's hard for me to show my vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be fierce and we can be strong and we can still be vulnerable.
Yes.
And
Oh,
asking is
absolutely.
not a weakness.
Right.
I think asking is actually a strength.
Right. And, you know, Brene Brown, of course, is all about you have to be vulnerable to be strong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it is a vulnerability in asking. I think our fear is that we're asking for ourselves, and we have to always remember that we're asking for the bigger picture. Like, what is it you're here? What's your purpose? What are you meant to be doing?
Yeah.
And then you're asking to make that purpose manifest. And that's
Exactly.
where you have to be fearless with the asking.
Absolutely.
And walk through those. And, you know, I think people, the reason they're afraid to ask is they're fearful of the rejection.
I think you're right.
You know, and I've met somebody
Especially being
recently.
vulnerable and then being rejected after being vulnerable. That's
Yeah.
not
Oh,
that's not
totally.
a fun experience.
And then I recently was talking to someone. I know they pitched their show like 40 times before it got picked up. And they said every time they woke up and they had some no's, they're like, great. That means I'm like on my way. I got getting the no's out of the way. You know, so you have to look at it that way, because it's not going to be yes, yes, yes. It's going to be a
Right.
lot of no's. And you have to just keep saying, I'm doing this for the greater purpose. That's
Absolutely,
what it's for.
exactly.
Trek on.
Yeah, and go towards that fear, you know.
Yeah.
We all sometimes don't want to go towards the ask because it's uncomfortable. But pushing ourselves towards what makes us uncomfortable is how it starts to become more comfortable.
And here's the funny thing I read recently, and I agree with it, that if the life wasn't a challenge, it would be pretty boring.
I know.
So, you know, it's that fear that drives us that, you know, and we
Right.
walk through it and you get on the other side and you feel great about it, that it makes everything more exciting. Because
Right.
if you didn't have a little fear and challenge, life would get kind of dull, wouldn't
I
it?
agree. I agree. You know, and that's why I say with mindfulness, don't rush those moments by so quickly.
Yes.
Even the ones that are difficult and
Right.
challenging, because I say the sweet spot is on the other side of that difficulty. That's
Mm-hmm.
where you really drop into like, okay, now I can really feel the joy of my hard work. It's the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
Do you know? It sometimes doesn't just come in that easy.
Yeah, and then when you do get that thing that is what you're supposed to be manifesting, your life's purpose, it feels so much more earned and so much more exciting because of all the controversy you went through to get to it, right?
Absolutely, that is.
Yeah,
it's
like
true.
writing your book. I'm sure that was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
It was not easy, and
Yeah.
as I said,
I only say that because I've written a book before, and I know,
So
you know what
know.
goes into making a book, a film, or anything that's, you know,
Our
any
projects.
significance.
Yeah, all the things that we really believe in and we're passionate about. You know, it's not always just the doors fling open for us.
Yeah.
And the book was, you know, very demanding, and it was very hard because I wrote it right after my sister Esther passed away.
Oh, wow.
And I was in grief when I wrote the book.
Yes,
And
you mentioned that last night.
and I look at that and I think, wow, I don't even know
How did you do it?
I don't even
but
know
you
how
felt
I did
like you
it.
were channeling her. You told me.
I did. I felt like
that's
she
beautiful.
was the guidance.
I love that.
Yeah.
As we're wrapping up, tell me one thing from the book that you would like to share with the audience. The book "Live True" that's, you know, available now. Like, is there like one nugget that you'd like to share that, you know, would be a reason that they would definitely want to pick this up? I know it's an invaluable book of tools, but maybe one tool or idea that you'd like to share.
You know, it is full of so many, as I said, tools and tips and skills and techniques that I really love. And
About how to be totally mindful.
Mindful and
Yeah.
to be present and to really drop into you. It's like, you know, I say, live true, be you. You know, each and every one of us is this unique, remarkable human being. And you know, I don't know what's in your inner dialogue. You don't know what's in my inner dialogue. But I know enough that we all have things that we tell ourselves that aren't true. And what the book, I think, will do is it will really open up this awareness of that, yeah, this is my life, and I want to make it the best life that it can be. And what am I waiting for?
Right.
You know, I could do that today.
Right.
I can change my life right now. That's why present moment awareness is so valuable. It's like, who am I right now? Who am I in this moment right now? And what do I want this moment to be about?
I love that.
Do you know?
And I have to say, I laughed last night. You said everybody has 40 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and I thought, oh, I'm sure I have 125,000. But the point of that statement is that with all of those thoughts that we have going on every day, how do we, as you know, the most simplified way I can say it is, how do we stop and smell the roses?
Well, having awareness, you know,
yeah.
mindfulness. Somebody asked that question last night. You know, what do you do with those negative thoughts? We have negative thoughts. We have an inner critic. Guess what? We all have it. The most important thing is to have a mindful awareness of like, oh, there's that negative thought again.
Right.
Catch it and do something so simple that I call the release and replace technique that I created in Says Who. If you can release one negative thought today and just replace it with its positive counterpart, you're going to feel different in your body.
Yes.
You know, and just try that. I have that great exercise that I do a lot in my workshops and public speaking where I have these Post-its. They're the release and replace Post-it. I say, write down a negative thought on that Post-it. Many people say, just one. You know, I say, start with one. They write down a negative thought. I said, take that piece of paper and throw it across the room. And I did that exercise in a room of 250 entrepreneurs. They were throwing that piece of paper, ball of paper. And I said, you see that piece of paper? Do you want to pick it up and uncrumple it? Yeah. And they're like, no.
No, let it go.
Let it go. And I said, now write down its positive counterpart.
Yeah.
And take that Post-it and stick it on your mirror.
Yeah.
When you're brushing your teeth every day and getting ready. And tell yourself that positive thought as opposed to the one that's bringing you down and sabotaging you.
I love that. We're going to leave everybody with that thought. A long time ago, a friend of mine said, you can't have a feeling without having a thought. So if you can change your thought, you can change your feeling.
Absolutely.
And I love that. That's a wonderful exercise for everybody to do today. Great way to start the day.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
I
so
appreciate
much for
it.
having
Love
me.
the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Catherine.
So be sure to check out Live True. You can pick up the book and of course, visit oranadrich.com to find out about the workshops and all the good stuff that she's doing. You might want to be a part of that. Make it a great day. Hugs and happiness. We'll see you next week.